Thank you so much. So I'm gonna talk and kind of switch. Watch me multitask. I have to say I'm over there watching the audience, just getting a little chuckle to myself because anytime there's okay, so can I get a volunteer? Nobody makes eye contact with the person on the stage. You all look away, you all kind of look down. But then all of a sudden when there are people up here, everybody out there leans back and there's smiles on your faces and you're like, this is great, this is so enjoyable, but I am not raising my hand and I will not go up on that stage. And at the same time, I heard next door, I think at least 3 times, I heard some sort of woo, wow, something happening in the room next door. So if we are going to be what the kids next door would call typical adults, then they will not hear us woo or yay the whole time that we're up here. So at least one time before I go off stage, we have to at least make a noise so that they think that we're having as much fun as they're having over there, because otherwise they'll think the afternoon is going to be the typical adult-child interaction. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here and being willing to come sit in a chair and listen to something that some girl you've never met from, most recently Colorado, but formerly Arizona, has to say. I firmly believe that you should never have to sit longer than your age. So I'm going to assume after 30 minutes, everyone has pretty much met their age, right? And that's it. 30 minutes is all you should all have. You shouldn't have to sit any longer than that. We'll keep it a nice young crowd in here. So I have this fantastic privilege of getting the opportunity to work in classrooms with kids every day. If you ever have your own children or you're in a school and you're in the interaction with children, you can feel the energy that's happening in a classroom when kids are starting to have that aha moment. It's an energy that is sometimes hard to find in our day-to-day jobs that we have, where we know we're doing important work, but at the same time you don't feel that cheer and that excitement that's happening. So I get this amazing privilege of working with kids and watching their faces as they start to learn to enjoy things that many people in this audience and many people in this country, many people in this world have not ever enjoyed in their life, and that is learning how to think critically and how to really start to understand numbers and how to enjoy story problems. I got like 3. Oh, see? Oh my goodness. Okay, I don't think they heard that, but that was a good try. That was a good attempt. That was a good attempt. We'll keep working on it, slowly build ourselves up here. So I have to say that the exciting things that happened to me in 2009 are, I can't even describe that year. Some of it's a little bit of a blur. I worked full-time. I gave over 100 speaking engagements that year, and still continue to do a lot of the work that I do outside of my real job to support teachers in their growth as mathematicians and in their growth in supporting building mathematicians. And so it's important to me that we kind of differentiate between teaching math and really inspiring kids who want to be thinkers and mathematicians. So when I came here, yesterday I got to go to 2 schools, which was really exciting, and I went into classrooms and I asked the kids, okay, so how do you feel about math? Okay, so these are some of the things that I heard yesterday. So I'm terrible at math, something that some of you in here might say. How many of you fall into that category? This is not technically raising a hand. This is technically this is I want to say it, but I'm not really sure. And some of you might fall into the category of, I'm okay at math, I could survive, but algebra was, a little bit hard. Last night at dinner, one of the lovely ladies told me that, sometimes if you are really good at math, people will say, you don't really look like the math type, So I think about this all the time in terms of reading, because it would never be socially acceptable for us to walk around and say, I am a terrible reader. Oh my goodness, I don't understand a thing I read. You don't look like the reading type. I mean, if you imagine saying these things, it's horrifying. But somehow we've allowed it to be socially acceptable to pass this attitude along to generations. And so we really have to start, if we're going to make any kind of change or any kind of adjustment in what's happening in terms of the attitude around math, the achievement in mathematics, then we have to start with our attitudes as adults. So whatever our experience was as a child, whether it was that we had a very logical mind and math came easy to us, or we were in a classroom and we really struggled the whole time and you were so happy when math was over and you survived it, we need to help our generation of kids right now feel like math is an exciting part, that we are really proud that they want to be thinkers like that. So I work at a school where, it's a group of teachers that watched a demographic of students change. So we went from a very high socioeconomic, very high achieving school to all of a sudden we had 17 different countries represented at our school, and more than half of our kids were speaking a language other than English as their first language. And what dawned on us what we're doing is not working. And if we keep doing the same thing that we're doing, we're going to keep getting, you all know this saying, right? The exact same results that we've been getting. And so we at the school decided we were going to really try to have a new attitude, a new approach. And for me, it was about saying we're going to change the way in which we talk about math. We're going to change the way in which that we support kids with math. So it was 3 different areas. So it was that whole, starting with ourselves, our personal identity. So I am going to start referring to myself as someone who's learning to be a mathematical thinker. If I used to say I was terrible at math, I'm going to start to refer to myself as someone who's, I'm learning to be a good thinker, and I'm learning how to think critically about numbers and about, contextual story, critical problem-solving issues that are out there, and I'm going to do it in a confident way. And we started to really think about, well, at the same time, we need to have higher expectations. So, for example, if you know someone who has a baby or is about to have a baby or has had a baby any time in their life, so everybody in here knows at least one person, right? It's a hard crowd to know. It's a good thing I think I'm funny. But when a baby is born, they get books as gifts, and parents read to them, and they take out the book, and they show them the book, and they point to the words, and we're talking about all different things to do with comprehending it, and we're pointing out different things in the picture. And the place that we go in math is counting. So often, we don't really support our kids from a parenting standpoint or a family standpoint in the way of, let's help them be thinkers, let's help them solve problems, let's help them start thinking about numbers. So one of it is raising our expectations that if I were to ask anyone in this room about a new baby coming and say, well, do you think that baby will learn to read? The answer would be, absolutely, that baby will learn to read. And when the question comes out, do you think that baby will be a confident mathematical thinker? The answer is not, I hope so. Because right now, that's what it is. Well, I hope so, because, boy, I'm sure terrible at it. Instead, it's going to be absolutely that child is going to be a mathematical thinker. Because the same as when I have a kid who I want to read, I'm not saying that they have to become a novelist or a poet or a literature expert. I'm not saying that this child that I want to be a confident mathematical thinker has to become a scientist or a mathematician, but I want them to have that choice and to have that flexibility in their thinking as they grow older. So in order to do that, the teachers in my school, we came together and we said, we're going to change our attitudes about it. We're going to think about professional development in a different way. We're going to start to be more collaborative. So let's start giving kids some problems, and let's step back, and let's talk a lot less. It's really hard. Because there's these moments, it's so much easier sometimes to tell people what to do. But if you think about it, if we could just tell people what to do and they understood it, then we wouldn't have any problems in the world today. I would be able to teach kids and they would all achieve and do just fine because I could declaratively share my knowledge and they would understand it and we would move on, they would take the test, it would be fine. When instead, what we know is that most of the problems in the world don't have one solution. Most of our issues have many different options that we could follow, and some of them are more efficient than others. So we want to have kids that are able to think about them in a flexible way and then make a decision about what's most efficient. So in order for us to get kids to be collaborative, we as adults have to be collaborative as well. And then, of course, we want students who are able to be flexible and collaborative and take a risk in the classroom. So how did we go about that? Well, it's a difficult task.